Welcome everyone to this week's AutoCAD IQ webinar series. We're happy to have you with us. This week it will be Christina and myself doing the webinar today. We're giving Volker a much-deserved week off, so any of you who join us regularly will notice Volker's not here today. We gave him the week off. So today we'll be talking about workspaces and the best way to use those. And so I will turn it over to Christina, who will run our webinar today.
Thank you, Sean. So happy almost Friday, everyone. And as usual, we're going to start with a couple of, before we get started, notes. So if you do have questions, please go ahead and put those in the questions chat window. GoToMeeting does have a feature to raise your hand, but if you raise your hand, we really don't have a way to figure out what you need assistance with, so make sure you go ahead and do chat questions window. We'll answer questions as we go along. Sean will be taking a look at those. If there's something that we can't answer because it's kind of specialized, or we just run out of time because everyone's so excited about workspaces, go ahead and put that on our landing page, our feedback page, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Additionally, make sure you check out our link for webinars that will be coming in the future. And we also have a YouTube playlist up. So on the landing page, there's a couple of the recent presentations that have been recorded, but then we have the full playlist up on our AutoCAD IQ YouTube page. All right, so first things first, we'll get a couple of our friendly polls in there. I'm going to start with, are you an Autodesk subscription customer? We'll give you a couple minutes to put that in, and we thank you for always assisting us with your feedback. And it looks like we have a full house of subscription customers, so thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then, have you attended an Autodesk AutoCAD IQ webinar in the past? All right. And again, thank you, everyone who repeat visitors. We do appreciate it. And for those of you that are new, we welcome you. Okay, so we've got that information out of the way. A couple other things we like to provide, just some articles that we have on our knowledge network, so knowledge.autodesk.com. And these are some of the hot button things that have come up in the past couple of weeks, particularly if you're working with geolocation images. There was some change to the code that happened on the Bing Map side, and then we had to adjust to that. That was a fix that came out remarkably quick. Sean, you can probably attest, I don't think I've seen a fix come out that quick.
It was a quick one.
It was a really fast one. So that's definitely one you want to update, as well as some things to note if you're working on Mac. You just want to be careful before you upgrade to Yosemite, and then also some things with Microsoft updates. As well as many more articles. All right, so let's start with workspaces. I'm going to put up a poll. Just do a quick question. Do you use workspaces?
It's interesting. Most saying yes, but there's about 30% no's in there.
Ah. What do you think, Sean?
Do you want to break the news?
All right. This was kind of a trick. Blame Sean. Whether or not we realize it, we are all using a workspace. So it's kind of like the concept of having layer zero. You know, you can't draw anything in AutoCAD if you don't have a layer, so you have to have something. So we all do have a workspace running. We may not have a custom workspace, though. So we'll look at workspaces just in general, what they do, and then we'll also look at how do you customize it. You might be really comfortable with just AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT out of the box, right the way they are, but you might find that there's certain things that it's a little quicker for you to click if they're on the left side or the right side, especially depending on whether you're left or right-handed. So we're all using workspaces, and we're going to learn a little bit more about them. So we'll talk about workspaces, managing them, creating custom, and then we will talk about importing workspaces. So we can import and transfer. This will help us share workspaces with other people in our company. And then also we will touch on the AutoCAD Classic. Some of you might already be hoping for that in this presentation. All right, so first things first. I always like to go back to our drafting roots to illustrate the ideas behind a lot of the features we see in AutoCAD. So when we drafted by hand and on boards, we would set up the space to be ergonomic so we didn't have pain, and then also make it efficient so that we could draft much faster, get our plans out the door. So I'm right-handed, so I would usually have my drafting arm on my left hand so that I could hold my drafting pens in my right hand, my dominant hand. And then maybe on the left side, I'd have a couple of scales that I'm going to reach over and grab. On the right side, I'd obviously want to reach over and grab my drafting pens. I might, if the budget was in, I might have an electronic eraser. I can hear some of you chuckling at the sight of that, but this was before they had compact equipment and wireless equipment. Sean, you remember these. These were like the best ever.
I think I still have one.
Yeah, you don't want to get rid of that. I wish I had mine. I don't know what I would do with it. But the idea is that I'm setting up a workspace that's going to help me get my job done in the best possible way. We're doing the same thing in AutoCAD. We're just doing it on screens. So we're setting tools up, so things we use often, things we use maybe not as often, but we're going to need once a week, once a day, and that's what we use a workspace for. Workspaces are stored in your CUIX file. A couple weeks ago, Volker did a presentation about resetting the CUI and how it controls your menus and commands and things in the program. And part of that is workspaces. You can see there in the list, drafting and annotation is the workspace we have for AutoCAD Lt. So it controls where your ribbon tabs and ribbon panels are, your quick access toolbar, it can be above the ribbon, below the ribbon, your palettes, so properties palette, tool palettes, design center, content, all of those things will be stored inside of the workspace and then inside the CUIX file. So let's jump over to AutoCAD Lt 2015. And here's that same setup that I was looking at. And first thing we're going to figure out is how do I even find what workspace I'm in, or how do I switch to different workspaces, or what if I have it set up the way I want? How do I save that so that every time I open, I don't have to go through this exercise of moving all of my menus and palettes and things? There are two places that we can go to find our workspaces. And in 2015, the interface is a little bit different, so you may be looking for it. So I go to the upper left corner, the quick access toolbar. It's got your new open save. And at the end, there's a little arrow with a bar over it. If you left click that, it'll drop down and it gives you some additional commands that you can use to customize the quick access toolbar. I'm going to pick workspace, and here's my workspace toolbar. So I can click the drop down and I see I've just got the one, drafting and annotation in LT. In AutoCAD you'd have some others. There's some 3D modeling workspaces. And then it does have choices there for me to save workspace settings and customize, which we'll look at a little bit later. So that's my first method. My second method is down on the lower right side in my status bar, kind of towards your Windows clock, this little gear here. Now, if you're looking at your own screen and you're saying, I don't even have that gear, you may just need to look at it in the Customize list. It's at the end of the status bar. There's a button with 3 bars on it. So if you don't see workspace switching, you would just left-click here, and that gives me the gear button. And it's the same as the pull-down that's up in my quick access. It's just in a different spot. If it helps, you can also click and choose Display Workspace Label. That way you see the extended name of your workspace that you're currently in. All right, so we've done all this great stuff. We've got our quick access toolbar set up. We've got our panel down the bottom, and then you close and reopen. Oh, I lost my workspace's toolbar again. Unless you enjoy that repetitive process, one thing we want to do is set our workspace to save changes. So I'm going to go down on the status bar and pick Workspace Settings. You can also get it from the drop-down in the Quick Access toolbar. And I get a Workspace Settings dialog box with my one workspace listed. And here is the setting I want to make sure is set. I usually do this as one of my first things when I install a new version of AutoCAD LT or AutoCAD. Automatically save workspace changes, because I don't like to repeat the same process over and over and expect different results. There are cases where you may not want to save workspace changes, particularly if you're using a public computer, like in a school. Maybe you just have there's one log on and you don't want to mess it up for the next person that comes in because what's comfortable to you may not be comfortable to them. So there are times where you don't always save that. All right, so we've only got the one. Obviously, that's our current workspace. We're going to add some more in a moment, and you'll see how we can set our current workspace from the toolbars. All right, so let's get into managing the workspace, creating some custom spaces. Now, when we talk about, earlier we talked about board drafting and being efficient and ergonomic, and what we want to think about is what are the commands that I am going to use on a daily basis. You don't want to have a situation like this. Now, obviously, we have the ribbons now, so you don't see that as often, but this is every single toolbar that was inside of this version of AutoCAD, all loaded. You have a teeny, teeny, tiny postage stamp area for your drafting, but that's not really managing my workspace. That's just throwing everything up there just in case I can't find it later. It doesn't really help you move fast. So we want to think about what is it that I do on a daily basis? What are the commands that I'm using most often? Obviously, your erase, your copy, your move, your rotate. Those are things we're going to use all the time. But if you're in AutoCAD and you're not doing 3D modeling, you maybe don't need all of those tools up. If you're in LT and you're not doing much with parametric constraints, maybe you shut those off as well. So start thinking about how you're working and avoid this.
Real quick, where's your Zoom Extents button?
I use the power of the keyboard, which will come up here. But yeah, this is the thing that's happening. You go on somebody else's machine, see this, and they're like, I know where everything is.
Yep, and you're right. We do see, working with a lot of people, we see people that still use it like this, and it's not necessarily that it's wrong, but as AutoCAD advances, hopefully the intent is to make things easier for users, and so what we like to encourage people to do is to try the new ways and different ways of working, and doesn't mean that your way you're doing it now is wrong, but you might find a way that's a little bit more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Or again, if you're Superman, then yeah, you probably do know where everything is on that screen. And do we have any questions before we jump back into AutoCAD?
Not right now, nope. But again, if anybody has any, actually, you know what? One did just pop in, so let me see. At one time, choosing to automatically save workspace changes affected the ability for changes made in the CUI dialog to stick. Is that no longer the case?
I do recall there was maybe a release or two that had some issues. There is a situation where if you don't have a drawing active when you close AutoCAD, that sometimes has been known to drop your settings. So if I were to close out of this drawing and I made some workspace changes and I close AutoCAD in this state, sometimes that will do it. So you may just want to even have a blank drawing 1 up before you close to make sure that's saved. We'll also look at, there is a way to do a manual force save as, so that's not an issue.
Right, yeah, and Kim also gave the advice that she leaves her auto option off. That way, if the CUI gets corrupted in some way, you're not going to be, you're still going to have your backup copies. So, for some, just saving when they want to may work better. But again, it's some of that's personal preference.
Absolutely, absolutely. So whatever makes you the most efficient. That's the whole point of the workspace. All right, great tips, everyone, and suggestions. And we're back into AutoCAD LT. I'm going to open up that mechanical drawing just so we're not looking into the deep abyss of nothing. And we'll talk about saving our workspaces, making a custom workspace, how we do that through the CUI and through right on our screen. So, for example, I've got this drafting and annotation workspace, and I've got it set to automatically save, but I want to make a new one. And maybe it's easier for me to work with my ribbon panels dragged off of the ribbon. If I'm still getting used to using the ribbon and this feels a little more like a toolbar for me, you might want to drag some of these out. And then you just place them at the location where your brain remembers and where it's fastest for you to click. So I've got those in place, and it's a little busy here. I'm actually going to close out my properties. Just bring that up when I need it. And this time I'm going to take the drop down from the quick access toolbar, and I'm going to save current as. So setup I've got shown on the screen right now, that's the one I want to save as Christina's workspace. So then I save, and then if I go back to drafting an annotation, you'll see that that has my properties palette up, my annotation and groups panels are back up at the top where they were prior, and I go back to Christina's workspace and it's this setup. So you may not always have multiple workspaces. There is also this concept of task-based workspaces. So again, you see it a lot with maybe you're going from 2D AutoCAD to 3D AutoCAD, but you may have different workspaces for different departments and different divisions. So everybody's using AutoCAD, but maybe the architectural team has some custom blocks and things that they use that they wanted to place up on a ribbon. So those are ways that you can set up different areas for people to work in. All right, so that's the first way. Just do a save current as. And again, I can go back to drafting an annotation. I'll just show you that real quick. If I wanted to overwrite this, save current as, I would just pick that name in the list, drafting an annotation, and save, and it would give you a warning, do you want to replace it? And I'll say replace, yes. Our second method is if we go into the customized user interface, so the CUI. So I'm going to type CUI. And on this first tab here, Customize, I can see my two workspaces listed. It tells me which one is current. It also shows me which one is listed as default. Now, just a word about that default setting. It doesn't mean that every time you close and reopen AutoCAD, that's the workspace that's going to be current. What AutoCAD will look at is which workspace you were in last and try to bring you up in that one each time. The default happens when you restore your CUI, either for the first time. So obviously the first time I loaded up AutoCAD, it needed to restore some type of workspace, so I get drafting and annotation. If I also do a CUI load or a menu load, so if I'm loading a new CUI file, maybe I have my own custom one with workspaces that I've set up, it's going to look at that default and load that. All right, so again, it's a default when it's restored or reloaded, not for every time you close and reopen AutoCAD. Okay, so I'm going to make a new workspace in the CUI just by right-clicking on Workspaces and then New Workspace. And this will be Sean's workspace. Maybe we're saving money, we don't have two machines, we don't want to make new profiles, so we're using the same computer and workspace. So I've got Sean's workspace highlighted, and then over here, I want to click Customize Workspace. Because if you look underneath, there's really nothing in it, obviously, because we haven't added anything. There's some palettes that come in by default, but everything else is blank. So I click Customize Workspace. That will change into a Done button. I'm going to jump back over to the left side. So now we're back over here. And if I start to expand my quick access toolbars, my ribbon tabs, and then as well you'll see toolbars and menus there as well. They have empty checkboxes next to them. So I left click in the toolbars, tabs, panels, the things that I would like inside of this workspace, or that Sean would like. What was the one you wanted, Sean? Zoom. All right.
Do you like Zoom? Undo is my favorite command.
Or oops. That was a good one. Or oops. As well, partial customization files, you might remember from Volker's presentation a couple weeks ago, but there are other menus and toolbars and ribbon tabs that are in there as well, and then anything custom that you might have added. All right, so this is plenty for Sean. That's all he really needs to do. And I'm going to click the Done button. It changes back to Customize Workspace. I'm out of the editing, no more checkboxes. And I'm going to set Sean's workspace current. So I right-click, set current, and then if I hit apply, and then OK, it kind of jumps around, and we can see that Sean does text and dimensions, he arrays, and he works with DTNs. That's it. And he zooms. All right, and then if I go back to Christina's workspace, you'll see that that's the way we set up with the dropped out panels, and then Sean's set up differently. So again, I know that's a lot of back and forth, left and right, all over the place. So I'll just show you real quick again. You make a new workspace. You click Customize Workspace. You come back over here to check off the ribbons and toolbars menus that you'd like, and then you go back and click Done. So left, right, left, right.
So in this day and age, it is pretty uncommon that folks share computers, right? At most companies, at most businesses, everyone has their own machine. At schools, it may be more likely that people are sharing computers, maybe in a lab, so the workspaces are especially useful there. But even if you're not sharing a machine, right, and you just use your own, workspaces can still be useful. You might have different types of projects you work on, so you may create a workspace with all 3D tools if you do some 3D work. Then you could have a different workspace for when you're doing work that's not 3D. So even if you're just, on your own, you just have your own machine, workspaces can still be really beneficial and helpful to you to get all the tools you need very easily without having to set it up every time.
Yeah, it could even be good as a transition tool, like if you're a CAD manager or content manager and you're trying to help people get comfortable with their ribbons, maybe giving them more workspaces where use this one and it has just the annotation tools, use this one and it has just the 3D modeling tools. That could be really helpful, just getting people comfortable. Because as we know, we all love AutoCAD, but sometimes it can be a little overwhelming with all the buttons and palettes and command line and everything all over the place. Okay, so do we have any more questions, Sean, before I keep going?
Not right now. I know we just went over a lot, or you just went over a lot, so I don't know if people are maybe just thinking about it. But certainly if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat window and we'll do our best to answer them.
Great. Okay, so we have talked about not overcluttering our workspaces, trying to be efficient. We've made a custom workspace. Next we're going to look at, all right, so we've got these workspaces, and that's really all there is to it in terms of making it. You just then need to figure out what's going to be the best fit for you. But let's say you do create these workspaces, like Sean had mentioned, you have a workspace for certain parts of your job that you're doing, and you want to share that with everybody. Because obviously everyone's not going to want to get into the CUI and move things around. And for that, we can use the transfer tab. So now, because it's stored in the CUI, if you're at a company where things are stored all on the network, you might all be looking at one CUI, and this may not necessarily apply, but this is one method that you can share without copying over everyone's CUIX, excuse me. So I'm on the transfer tab. I'm still in the customize user interface, CUI command. On the left side, it's showing me my current CUIX file, so the AutoCAD Lt. This is what's currently running on the program that I'm in. On the right side, it's just a blank CUI. So I could make a new CUI or click the open folder icon to browse to another CUI that my coworker's given me because they've got this great workspace that has saved them 40 hours of work on a project because it's that good. I don't know that workspaces have ever been known to do that, but let's hope. So I'm going to browse. To actually AutoCAD 2015 and take a workspace from there. And we'll talk about what workspaces can and can't do. So I'm now looking at, I'll zoom in so you can see, the LT CUIX, which is my current, and then the AutoCAD CUIX, which is I want to drag workspaces from here into my workspaces here. So I look and I say, oh, awesome, I can get 3D modeling tools by bringing this workspace over. Let me bring that in. I don't want to have to go through installing the full one. So there's 3D modeling. I click apply. I'm just going to click OK, and I'll make it current through my quick access toolbar. So I go to 3D modeling, and all the settings that were in that CUI from my coworker, I've now got that. I didn't have to drag things, move around, or save as. But that doesn't mean that I get any extra commands. So this is important to think about, especially if you're working with any of the verticals on top of AutoCAD. Whoever's setting these up, if you're setting them up for a company, you want to be in the program that everyone has. So I can't bring this workspace in and say, oh, I've got 3D tools. They don't exist in AutoCAD LT. Or I can't bring in, a workspace from Civil 3D and get surface tools. So you want to make sure it's stuff that everyone can work with. So you might have just an AutoCAD workspace, and then maybe you make one special for the vertical so that each product has that. And I'm going to switch back to my workspace.
I'm going to, with a couple questions while you're doing that, if that's okay. Lynn had a question. The all commands in the left bottom, is that how you customize a particular ribbon, etc.?
So I think we're talking about all in the CUI.
Yes. That's how I believe. I think that's what you meant as well.
So yeah, so you would create a new ribbon, toolbar, menu, and bring the commands from the all commands up into that toolbar. And then to see it, you would obviously then have to add it to a workspace to make it visible.
Okay. So let me, Lynn, I'm going to unmute you just momentarily. Does that help to answer? Does that show what you were looking to do? If you have a microphone? All right. Maybe not a microphone, but you did say yes, so that's good. Thank you, Christina, for answering that. And then we had one more, which is, can you recover a workspace from an old version when the old version of AutoCAD is removed from the system prior to the install of the new version of AutoCAD?
Hold on. Let me look.
So in other words, in other words, if you uninstall AutoCAD and then reinstall your new version, can you then go back to the old version and get your workspaces back?
It depends. We're going to talk a little bit about that too with that AutoCAD Classic workspace. If you still have the CUI file, you could go to the Transfer tab and bring it over, even if the older version of AutoCAD wasn't installed. That'd probably be the way that I would do it.
Yeah, typically it's a good idea that if you are upgrading and you need to remove your old version, to either export all of the information that you're going to want to save before you do that, or, and I think Volker actually went over this in one of his classes a few weeks back as well, it's okay to leave that old version on and install your new version, because then it will actually come up and prompt you and ask you what you want to import from the existing version. So you do have a lot more options if both versions are temporarily on the machine at the same time. So it can be done if you've removed the other version first, but it's a bit more tricky. It's easier if you have both on there at the same time.
Yeah. So actually, was it Jonathan? He's now leading us into that next portion. So if were there any other questions, John?
Just those two for now.
Those two? Okay. So the next thing I did want to talk about was importing a workspace. So one of the things, if this is separate from trying to share it with your coworkers or make multiples, but one of the things we noticed in 2015, LT and AutoCAD and the vertical products, is that there was not an AutoCAD Classic workspace included. So I will talk about how we can bring that forward, whether we have the old program installed or if we don't, and also how you could maybe just build your own if it's the first install you're doing. But before we do that, I do just want to put some context on that AutoCAD Classic workspace. All right, so since we know that workspace is gone, just the context I wanted to put in is that the ribbons and moving towards the ribbons shouldn't be too much of a surprise for most of us, because we've been transitioning into ribbons in a lot of products. Office 2007 was the first one that gave us ribbons. So Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, even Paint has a ribbon. So we've been seeing this transition happening. And to stay in line with what is going on with technology, obviously AutoCAD wants to do the same. So AutoCAD 2007 was the first time that we got ribbons and started working with those. So from AutoCAD 2007 and AutoCAD LT up to AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT 2015, we've had 9 releases in between there to sort of help us get comfortable with it. And as you can see, the tools aren't gone. The toolbars and menus, you can still add those in, you can still work with those, but in terms of trying to maintain that AutoCAD Classic workspace, that's just what's not in the newer version. All right, just going to require you to maybe do a couple more steps on your own. And again, it's because there's a lot of potential for what AutoCAD can do in the future. Look at where it was, my favorite release, R14, to where it is now. And we want to be able to put time into getting those new things in there, as opposed to, maintaining some of the older technology that's maybe going out. And not just with Autodesk products, it's going out with, every Microsoft and a lot of other programs as well. So that's where we go with AutoCAD Classic not being there. I will just put a little warning out there. I've got a picture here of Mount Vesuvius overlooking Pompeii, and this was a case where there were warnings. There were tremors and there was smoke coming out, but it had been happening for years. Nobody really paid attention until it was too late and everything turned to ash. Now I realize Sean's always telling me I can be a little dramatic. This is clearly not as big a deal as that. But the idea is that we had a warning with AutoCAD 2007. Okay, this is a new interface. It looks a lot like Microsoft. This is different. And now we're getting another warning where, all right, the AutoCAD Classic Workspace is going to take a little bit longer for me to get that if I want it. If you haven't started embracing working with the ribbons, even just a little bit, sometimes use ribbons, sometimes use toolbars, now is definitely the time that you want to start doing that, because we don't know what's coming up in the future. It may be that at some point as we get into, there's betas out for Windows 10. So as those things happen, it might be harder and harder to maintain toolbars, menus, those things. So start getting comfortable with it.
Yeah, so I think what Christina was trying to say. We understand it's hard to pick up new tools, and especially now, it used to be AutoCAD came out once every 3 years or so, and so you had a lot of time to get used to it. And now with the releases being out every year and multiple service packs oftentimes throughout the year, it can be difficult to keep up with the tools. But for the most part, these new tools are meant to increase your productivity, increase your speed. I say for the most part because we do understand there's times we add things and it doesn't quite go to plan, and we try and rectify those. But for the most part, most of the tools are meant to increase. And things like the ribbons, folks that have adopted them and used them are very big proponents that they save a lot of time. So things like the classic workspace, they will stay in there for a long time, but eventually we move away from that. So if you can try and adopt the new tools and learn how to use them. Christina and I were actually talking about this morning in preparation for the webinar, and we sort of agreed that for most tools, if you use it for a good solid week, you're going to get most of it down pat and probably be just as productive and start to become more productive with the new tools. So I know it's hard, but if you can be willing to give it a try, usually it will make your life a little easier.
Absolutely. And I'm going to actually throw up a poll about what people are using most often. And while you're being honest with us, I'm going to be honest as well. I'm kind of in the boat of still doing a combination of both. I learned on my beloved R14, so I still type a lot of things because it's just ingrained in my brain. Would it be quicker for me to probably move my mouse up and click line instead of doing L-Enter? Maybe. But in my brain, it feels like L-Enter is the fastest. So I have transitioned over to the ribbon. I didn't do it very happily right in the beginning, but I did give myself like a week to first doing it. Also, I did see when I was doing training classes, it's definitely a lot easier for new users. So if you do have some new users coming into your office, and I would get them started right away on the ribbon. Obviously, you might have to transition a little to help them when you're teaching them. But if you can get them going on the ribbon, it just makes the process of learning a lot faster. Those of us who've been using toolbars for some time, R14, it just takes a little brain retraining. But yeah, it's okay to use a little of both. All right, so our poll. So we've got a good showing from everybody. Keyboard, weapon of choice, you folks, close to my heart. But it looks like the majority, a little of both. And that's, I think, just a good step. Start doing a little bit of everything. If you're finding, I just cannot find this command every time I need it, and I know it's somewhere on the ribbon, then give yourself some options. Some other things that might help is over in the application menu. You might want to search for some of those tools. So if I'm looking for, we'll do match properties because it's right there. I can type that in.
We're not seeing your AutoCAD, just by the way, Christina.
You're not.
We're still on the poll.
Oh, all right. I got excited. Thank you, Sean.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. So if you calm yourself down and get into AutoCAD, if you can't find match properties or whatever command it is that you're looking for, you type in the application menu, which is the A in the corner, and it will tell you where you can find this. Right? And that helped me a lot with the transition into the ribbon.
Yeah, the other thing too, and we didn't go over this, so I'm going to throw a monkey wrench at you, but could you just go to the help?
Absolutely.
If you just go to help, the help menu, and just type in line, for instance, there's a new thing in here with 2015 where if you go to line, and then I think it's the second one down, right, to draw lines, you'll see there's that find right there. Yep, so once you click on that, you'll see that once Christina clicks on that, it actually, see the red arrow pops right up, so that's a nice visual thing they added so that if you want to start to use the ribbons but you're just not sure where these commands are, you can just find it quickly in the help menu, click on find, and it's going to show you right where it is on the ribbon. If it's on a ribbon or a panel that is not currently showing, a little message will pop up and say this is on the annotate panel, right, so that you know at least which panel to go to, and then you can do find to get the arrow for the exact location. So that's a nice little reminder too. My one recommendation, just and I know we're sort of hammering on this, so my last comment on it is we see a lot of people that as soon as they load AutoCAD, the first thing they do is go to the ribbon close command and just completely close it. What I would recommend is even if you're not fully on board with the ribbon or even on board at all, at least leave it open. Just leave it up there. It doesn't take up too much space, and that's at least a visual reminder to start to use it. I've been using AutoCAD a very long time, like Christina has, and so this is not a biased opinion, but the ribbon really is one of the biggest time savers that's been added into AutoCAD. So it's a good thing to at least give a look at. And yeah, so I will let you go ahead. Jonathan made a comment that the keyboard's a little bit faster with custom routines, and so that's okay too, right? You may find that the command line is not going away, and I don't think it ever will, because there may always be things that are just easier or quicker with the command line, so that's okay.
You are never lost if you have the command line. That's true.
That's right, yeah. You
do have to remember what to type, but although now it's got the, okay, we digress. Anyways, all right, so we have fully indoctrinated you on the ribbon and why we are hoping everybody's getting more and more comfortable with it. That being said, let's go ahead and look. All right, you really need that AutoCAD Classic. Just get a job out the door. Totally fine. So what we're going to do is first option was that transfer. So I'm not going to run through it again, but the same way I said I can transfer a workspace. If I had a coworker that made a really good one, I could also do that if I've got that old CUI. All right, so I went to the AutoCAD 2015, but if I went back to AutoCAD 2014, again, I could have AutoCAD 2014 installed, and this folder doesn't get removed right away, so this would still be here until I go in and delete it. And I could pick that CUI and then transfer that workspace over. All right, I'm going to remove it for now just because I'm going to show you another way to bring it in as well. But that's the way we would use transfer to bring over AutoCAD Classic. And we'll discard. The second way goes back to what we had mentioned a little bit earlier. So we talked about migrating settings a couple weeks ago, and I think Sean referenced it again while we were on the webinar today. But if you do still have AutoCAD LT or AutoCAD installed, that previous version, you can go down to the Start button once LT closes. There we go. All right, I'll move Pompeii so you're not frightened. But we'll go down to Start, All Programs, Autodesk, And then I'm going to pick my current version of AutoCAD or AutoCAD Lt, which is 2015, and then go to Migrate Settings, and I'm going to migrate from a previous release. Or if you remembered and you exported, you could import that same version. Somebody else has one, you could import. But I'm going to migrate. Once AutoCAD is done running, that service might still be going. Migrate. Oh, all right, so this is not part of the window. I'm going to end my process because I think AutoCAD is still hanging on there. Maybe not. All right, well, let's do it with 2014. It's the same process, but migrate custom settings, migrate from a previous release as long as it's installed. And then it's finding LT 2013. And I don't need everything. We talked about migrating settings in a previous presentation, but I would just bring over what you're looking to get right now, which is that CUI file. Now, remember the warning. Depending on what you're bringing in, everything doesn't always go apples to apples, oranges to oranges, so you may need to reset to defaults and figure out if there's a situation there. But you can bring over that CUI file and the AutoCAD Classic Workspace will be included. So that does work for 2015. For some reason, just not today, but that is still an option. All right, so AutoCAD Classic, if you need it, you can do Transfer tab, you can do Migrate Settings, or you can do it the manual way. So it's brought in my settings. I'm going to go back into AutoCAD Lt 2015. And the manual way would be just make a new workspace and only turn on toolbars and menus. Once we're in, I will show you how to get the menu bar visible, because that is one extra step. But while that's relaunching, any questions, Sean?
Yeah, there's a couple. I'll give you just one for now from James, actually. He jumped on a little late. But what is the best way to show ribbon tabs to all users via a network location? And he's talking about like the main or enterprise CUI. So I'll leave that up to you. I think that's almost more of a CUI type of implementation. But and we did have a webinar on that not too long ago. But I'll let you answer that how you want to.
Yeah, I think you actually answered it. So I would definitely go back and look at that custom and settings webinar that we did, because you have a main client enterprise CUI. So you could have everyone browse to and grab that main CUI, or if you want to just read-only settings, have it be enterprise, which means it's on the network, it's in a position that you don't want everybody going in to edit, and then everyone's options dialog box is going to point to that CUI file. Other places, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I thought you were finished with that there.
I worked at places.
No, I was just going to say
traffic. So they didn't want all that network traffic going in. We just had a small office, so they would instead copy it on the network, but tell everybody to transfer the workspace on their own.
Yeah, it's really one of those subjects, James, that it can really be its own hour-long session, and it actually was recently. So hopefully that gave you a few little tips, but I would recommend, I did put in the chat window, I put the link to where our previous recordings are. You may want to go and look at the CUI class that we did. And if that doesn't answer it, feel free to post a question in our feedback link, and we'll be happy to help you with that. Are you getting feedback from me, Christina, or do I sound?
A little bit, but I think we just went back to 100%, so we should be good. Okay.
Yeah, I was hearing my own feedback. So the other thing, while that's still coming up, is Jonathan had another more of a statement that there are a lot of complaints about not being able to turn the icons back into words down there in the workspace like you used to be able to do. So I will say the way I'm going to answer that, Jonathan, is we are very careful at Autodesk not to make promises for future releases, and hopefully that's understood why we do that, because sometimes even we have the best intentions, but we fix one thing and then it turns out that it breaks something else, and if it's last minute it's hard to get everything in there. So sometimes even if we intend to fix or revert or bring back functionality, last minute things, it may not always happen. But what I will say about that issue there is that we have heard that loud and clear from customers. It's been one of the biggest things that we have had comments on and people requesting to bring that back. So I can't make any promises, but I will let you read between the lines there. We've heard that pretty loud and clear, and I'm hoping that we will see that brought back in a future service pack or release.
And Sean, do you have the feedback link that you could put into questions?
I did put that in there. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the feedback link is definitely the way to be vocal, because as much as Sean or I can say this is what we're hearing, it's really the numbers that will speak to it. So if everyone on this, we have 26 attendees, if everyone were to go up and say, we all want this, and that's happening in every state across the country, that's what really gives it powerful meaning, as opposed to one support specialist like us saying, I've got 20 clients that would like this. So definitely please utilize that. All right, and then was there another?
That's the last one for now.
That's the last one. Okay, so we went back into AutoCAD. We had talked about bringing the AutoCAD Classic back. You sort of helped me from that up. Sean's a good tip. Because my migrate thought that AutoCAD was perpetually running, I will go back into the CUI and just do the transfer of the AutoCAD Classic real quick, just to show you. I do apologize. We are definitely hitting internet connection walls, so if we're breaking up or you're not getting all the picture, I apologize for that, but it should come clear through the recording. Okay, so I'm going to pick my recently used CUIs, and I'll take that AutoCAD Classic over, and I'll hit Apply, and OK. And I could set it current from here as well, but I want to do a couple different methods, show you. So this time I'll do it from over in the status bar down by your Windows clock. So Christina's workspace is current. I'm going to click and pick AutoCAD Classic. And it's going to do its little dance. And then we should have a slightly different preview than we did before. There it goes. And then my AutoCAD Classic happens to already have the menu bar there. If you did want that to help you transition and you're not seeing it, remember that little arrow with a bar we saw in the Quick Access Toolbar? Menu bar. So right now we're showing the menu bar, but there's a hide and then obviously a show option. Show menu bar. So if for some reason that didn't come up in your classic workspace, you would be able to update it that way. Okay, so I see the little blip saying we might have some more questions.
No, we're all set. I was just having James and I were having a moment, so I've posted what he was looking for the links to be posted again.
Okay, in private moments. Sorry.
We were.
All right.
You called us out.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, so Vesuvius, one more time, just warning. All right, so we will leave it for a couple more questions as well. I'll open it up if there's more things we want to discuss, but there are additional resources, and we will be posting this PowerPoint. I may post it to the feedback page just because, as Sean mentioned, we're giving Volker a much-needed break, and he usually uploads it through the email, so I'll go ahead and put that up there. But here's some articles that we've put with just things you might see. One of the things that came up today, someone brought out, was just, it doesn't always save the workspace changes, even though I have it set to automatically save. And there's some articles in here about that, how to change the workspace, which is what we did with the AutoCAD Classic, and a bunch of other articles. As well, we also have coming attractions. So Sheet Set Manager, this is one that we've been talking about for about a month. We're going to have Jason Forelli, who has been moderating for a couple of weeks with us, but he's going to present Sheet Set Manager, which is a really, really powerful tool as our drawings get bigger and we're using more XREFs and we have more details. Even if you just have a ton of layout tabs, really, really cool tool, one of my favorite. And then we all get a break. Feel free on Thanksgiving if you want to just hang out and play with AutoCAD. Otherwise, go home and watch some football. And then I know some of you will be seeing Sean and Volker at Autodesk University. If you won't be attending, there will also be recordings for that. And then we're going to get to a Back to Basics series that Volker will be running with just getting into some general drafting, object selection, lines, some of those things that if you're newer to the program you might need.
Yeah, and I know that we've talked about AU the past few weeks, and we're only about 3 weeks away. So if you're going, we're looking forward to seeing you there. If not, there are still a few weeks left to sign up. If it's just too short of notice at this point, it really is the premier event for Autodesk every year. So if you've never been, definitely see if you can arrange things to attend one of these years. It's really just a fantastic event. And if you are going this year, please track down Volker or myself. We really do like to chat with customers and get to know you guys. So we're both there teaching classes, and we'll also both be spending a lot of time at the answer bars. If you've been to Autodesk University before, those are the areas where we can come and talk to any of us at Autodesk and ask questions. So Volker and I will also be at the answer bars quite a bit. So we would love to meet some of you and hear your thoughts on anything, including these webinars. So hopefully we'll see you there. If not, then you have a year until next year's, and see what you can do to try and attend.
Excellent.
And we did have a question from Lynn about who is able to sign up for these webinars. So these are available to everyone and anybody, Lynn. So there are no restrictions on who can attend these webinars, and we actually, we're trying to get more attendance. We think these have great value, and we're trying to spread the word. So if you have others that you think will attend, please share the links with them and let them know. We would love to have even more people.
All right. Well, I'll give it a minute or two more if anybody has any other questions. Again, if it doesn't strike you now, feel free to come back to the feedback page and put in a question. You just remembered something that you want to look at, and we'll definitely try to help you out. Otherwise, I will thank everyone for joining us and putting up with my dramatics. Again, love your ribbon. Love your ribbon. And I want to thank Sean as well for co-presenting with me. Great help.
Absolutely. These are fun to do.
All right.
And I think that's it. No more questions at this time, so I think we are good to go.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you at Sheet Set Manager next week with Jason Farrelly.
Have a great rest of the week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.